I'd like to say good evening to everyone and welcome to our the Culpeper County Planning Commission March meeting. And we know that it's real nice outside and you all would rather be out there, but glad to see you here to take care of the business of the county too. So, but at this time we are going to move on with our meeting as I've called it to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda at hand, and any additions or deletions? Okay. Being none, all in favor of accepting the agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. All right. The agenda is accepted as presented. The approval of our minutes from our February 1st and February 14th Valentine's Day meeting. Okay. Any changes, any concerns there? Being none, have a motion to accept the agenda, the minutes?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Do we have a second? Second. And we don't have to vote on it, we just put that to record. Now, moving to our old business. First case on the old business, Neil?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have case Z46123-1. It's a request by Red Ace Capital Management, Ari Firuzabadi, to rezone 17.6 acres from RA rural area to light industrial. The property is located along Route 3, Germanna Highway in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's located on tax map 51, parcels 85A and 86. The applicant proposes to use the property for various commercial and industrial purposes, including, but not limited to, a convenience store, facility, and warehouse type uses. The applicant's request for deferral of this case, including the public hearing, was approved by the Planning Commission on February 14th, 2024.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As Neil read there, we have a repeat case from last month. It's a rezoning request from a rural area piece to light industrial piece. On the screen highlights the parcel, two parcels actually, a larger parcel and a smaller rectangular parcel there in red. Just to give you a little flavor of the area there, the purple area that's shown there to the west and to the north is already zoned light industrial and slated right now for data center facility. The residential area across Route 3 is really not residential used until you get on Lover's Lane. That's the Library of Congress facility there on the hill. And then we do have some single-family uses in the RA zone there to the east of the property that you can see with the gray shaded rectangles and squares there. And that just gives you an area character of what we're looking at tonight. The applicant has submitted an application with supplemental material, including a concept plan that you all have looked at previously last month. Also a proffer statement, initial proffer statement dated January 22nd, I believe. And then since that meeting, the applicant has submitted a TIA, or a traffic impact analysis or study, that was submitted just a few days ago, I believe on March 5th, and that was forwarded to the Planning Commission for your review as well. Just a little background on the traffic impact study. We have looked at it. We have received it. We have not received any comments from VDOT on that study. Typically it takes VDOT at least 30 days to respond to new information. So that is just something I wanted to put out there out in front. The application has not really changed greatly from what you saw. The staff report that was generated for the February Planning Commission, the comments that were made, the analysis that was done, remains largely the same. So the comments that you saw in that report remain unchanged, and still are comments and concerns that staff have raised that we feel should be addressed by the applicant as this application moves forward. The application team, I believe here, looking in the front row, is here and in full accord tonight, Mr. Chairman, so they should be able to answer many of your questions and share what their proposal for the future for this property is. The proffer statement doesn't identify a particular use, but the concept plan did identify a convenience store setup, a major convenience store setup with gas pumps and car wash potentially, as well as some potential warehouse units that could be built in the back. That's not necessarily the only potential use, and the applicant purposely submitted an application that didn't identify a particular use. That remains probably one of the largest concerns for staff as we move forward with any type of transportation solution or mitigation factors, buffering that we need to look into, setbacks. Typically, that rezoning process is narrowed down a little bit more as far as an actual use and allows us to facilitate whether it fits the neighborhood well or not. And I feel like we're still missing some pieces from a staff standpoint to be able to put our full stamp of approval on this rezoning at this time. Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it at that. If we have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to try to entertain those, and the applicant team is here. So.
Thank you very much, Neil and Sam. And the applicant or representative for the applicant, please come forth. And anyone who comes to the mic this evening, we're asking that so those who are watching on TV can actually hear it clearly, that you speak clearly and have your voice up a little high so we can.
Yes, sir.
So they can hear it. Okay. Thank you.
Chairman Reeves, Vice Chair Thornhill, and members of the commission, my name is Rex Edwards. I had the pleasure of appearing before you very briefly at the last meeting for the purpose of requesting that the matter be set aside. I'm an attorney here in Culpeper representing the applicant, Red Ace. I'd like to express our appreciation for setting it aside at this meeting. As Sam said, there is some questions, concerns raised by the staff, and we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to address those concerns. So as Sam said, we do have a number of individuals here with us this evening to address whatever concerns or questions the commission may have. Michael Arm, who I believe is known to many of y'all, if not all of you, is a project consultant. We have also with us Zach Ben Limley, Jim Madison to address some of the site and the engineering issues, and then Yogi Singla to address the traffic issues. I'm here to address any legal issues you may have. I may be overly optimistic, but in my review of the comments, I think hopefully this is the full extent of comments you'll receive from me, but I'm more than happy to address any questions or concerns that you have. But if it's okay, I'll turn it over to Michael Arm. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the commission, thank you. Mr. Kilby, good to see you. Mr. Kilby knows me by my day job as a data center consultant. What I'd like to talk about first off is the concern.
Me.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give your full name
Yeah,
for
Michael,
the record. That's
Michael
my fault.
Arm,
I didn't say that.
A-R-M-M.
Rex just automatically
Okay.
did it. So, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yes, go ahead.
on the concern of the use, the project, we have particular individuals that we're talking to about the end use, but the hard thing is, even in Culpeper County these days, it takes about 6 months to get through a complete rezoning from start to finish. So it's hard to market to somebody to say, if you wait 6 months, we will have something for you. So we feel that it's proper to go get the rezoning first and to leave enough optionality that you have a number of uses within the allowed zone that you're asking for. It's no secret, we do have conversations going on with the gas C-store operator, a well-known gas C-store operator. We also believe that we would be able to draw tenants into a small bay warehouse, sort of a flex-type building in the rear to take up the remainder of the property. What I would like to do, though, is utilize our consultants to help do a presentation to you tonight and have actually our engineers here from LDC, if you would like to come up, Jim Madison. I'd like for him to just kind of walk through with you. And is it okay to pull up the exhibits for the, yeah, thank you. Yeah. And this is probably the best place to start. So I'd ask Jim to just kind of describe to you what you're seeing here and to talk about some of the setbacks from the environmental area and how we're trying to stay out of the major stream corridor, the 100-year floodplain and the wetlands there, and what we're talking about as far as buffers to the east side of the property. So,
good evening. I'm Jim Madison with LDC. And just to highlight a few elements of our illustrative plan here, our entrance is aligned with the intersection, which is a standard VDOT requirement. We have an area of, we have a stream with a flood hazard area or floodplain on the northern side of the property here. We are providing a 35-foot riparian buffer along the stream, the primary channel of the stream. And we intend to get away from the environmental area as quickly as possible, as you can see here. We do anticipate a small area of impact right where our entrance is because there's an existing culvert under the road there. So there's a little resulting stream and floodplain area right where our entrance has to be. And then along the eastern side, on this plan, we are showing a 30-foot screen area and a 50-foot building setback, but I believe that is actually proffered to a 50-foot buffer. You can see the convenience store and the warehouse that we're proposing with this layout, and the blue area to the northeast is a stormwater management facility to collect and treat the runoff from the property.
What I would additionally point out is you can see that in Plan North, there are trees on the boundary to the RA property. And Plan South along Route 3, there are trees that, based on our conversations with staff, we would not remove the trees within that 50-foot area, and in fact would be using additional landscaping to supplement the areas that don't have trees.
Okay.
Yogi, would you please come up? Yogi is with Grove Slade Traffic Consultants. I want him to talk about how we've scoped out the traffic impact study.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Pankaj Singla, I go by Yogi. So for traffic study, we have assumed more conservative land use that can be built on this one, and we have assumed C-store with 14 fuel stations, and then also one car wash with one car wash bay, automated car wash bay. And based on the analysis, we using the softwares and all accepted methodology by VDOT and county, we see that there is the impact will be within the acceptable limits, and it will not impact the roadway beyond acceptable level of services. So we and yeah, and then also that's all, I guess.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah,
Okay.
So,
if you,
so we're making the most conservative assumptions
Right.
with what we have done for VDOT. You know, I know, again, staff has concern about not narrowing down the uses at this point. So we've gone with the gas C-store and the warehouse, and nothing is gonna really provide more traffic generation than the C-store, quite frankly, for the allowed uses that we have not proffered out for the zone. So we will do, and we will amend our proffer to, if we need to adequately reflect it, whatever VDOT comes back with as far as the improvements that are required based upon the TIA, we will do the improvements that are needed out at the, we know that we have to reset the traffic signal because it becomes the intersection becomes a four-way intersection. So we will have signal improvements, we will have some lane improvements. It's interesting, the left turn in coming from the bypass is already there. It's kind of odd, but if you drive out there, there's a left turn to nowhere that's already in place. We will also dedicate whatever additional right-of-way is necessary for any widening on our side for the right turn lane in. And there is the potential, we do meet the standards for a slip lane in, meaning that a right turn only coming from the east, heading west, coming from Fredericksburg towards the, heading towards the town of Culpeper. C-store operators quite often would like to have just a dedicated right turn lane in only. It's similar to what we have out on the airport road on Route 29 with the service station out there. On the airport road, you have a right turn in only. We do meet the separation requirements between Route 522 traffic signal and where that slip lane would go in. So we would like to reserve the right to do that with a convenience store with VDOT's approval. So.
and I just want to add on this one, we didn't assume that right-in, and that provides even conservative analysis because all the traffic right now has been assumed only on one entrance. With adding one more entrance, that right-in, it will reduce the impact and also increase the safety at the signalized intersection.
So getting back to some of the items, additional items on the staff report, I know staff was very concerned about the environmental aspect, especially if there is a gas C-store, because you have this large 100-year floodplain corridor going through the property. We tried to address that in the proffers with a number of environmental proffers that address both controlling spills at the ground level, surface level, and underground, which includes the use of double-walled tanks with interstitial monitoring, monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, both on-site and at a remote location. We had included some information in the proffers on utilizing oil-water separators and having all the surface area flow to oil and water separators. Additionally, there's some technology available that we have proffered to that when the tanks are being filled, that when the tank reaches 90%, it actually shuts off the delivery truck, that the tank monitors it and it's tied to the truck to prevent overflows. So we've tried to come up with some of the best technology that we can to protect the sensitive corridor there from any environmental issues with if there's a motor fuel type use. So, okay. Additionally, staff is concerned about public water and sewer. I can tell you, one of the attempts we made, because public water and sewer is not nearby, as you may be well aware, the closest sewer is across the street. There is actually a pump station across the street that is utilized by the architect of the Capitol's facility, and it pumps the sewage back towards the town for treatment. We contacted the town about tying into that system for sewer, and the town did not want us to consider it, which surprised me a bit. But we don't have that available to us. I think the next closest water and sewer is probably out on Lovers Lane where the new motel is out by 84 Lumber. And then, of course, water and sewer exists on the other side of the bypass. This is the same applicant who was before you a few years back on the 85 acres adjacent for the data center site. I'm happy to say that that data center site is now being readied for development by DataBank, and they are working with their design engineers and getting with VDOT on the necessary crossings under Route 29. They need pretty good-sized water and sewer connections, so they'll be jacking and boring under Route 1529. We know that staff wants us to tie in. We want to tie in. We know that we are in the water and sewer district, which is part of the justification for the use of this property, along with the fact that it's in the technology overlay. We believe the fact that it's actually showing up as RA on the comp plan was a little bit of a misfit, that it probably belongs in a higher and more intensive use, being at the traffic signal at the crossroads here within the county. So we're trying to come up with the water and sewer solution. We are willing to tie in. The water and sewer master plan actually has just to the north of this property on the 85 acres a pump station. And it is our intent that when that pump station becomes available that we will tie into it. We will also tie into the water as it makes its way over. But I'd like to have Zach Van Lemley from the applicant come talk about the timing and the phasing of water.
Good evening. My name is Zach Van Lemley. Like Michael was saying, so the timing of the water and sewer, as we know, is not official yet.
You can take that mic out of there and hold it in your hand.
Okay, does that work?
It slides out of there.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't
so
want you bending down.
yeah, I appreciate
Okay.
it. So we don't have an official date, of course, of when we know water and sewer is going to be delivered. But like Michael was saying, Red Ace still has a relationship with DataBank. That's the property that we were working on, and are confident that they're working on their plan as soon as possible. We are 100% confident that that's a real site. They want to build that. It's coming. And right now, the most information that we have is what is in the county's master plan for water and sewer. So from what we saw was that the proposed pump station just north of the property line at 250 feet roughly from here. We originally proffered 100-foot. It was a 100-foot proffer to connect to water and sewer when it becomes available. We're going to go ahead and extend that to 300 feet. After reviewing everything in the last 30 days, we think that that would be appropriate for when that does come. We'll go ahead and plug right into it. And we're even going to start on that application as soon as the data center user to the north also starts that application. So the goal is to have everything plugged in within 12 months of delivery to the north.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I believe at this point, we've hit on most of the high points of what staff had brought up and staff concerns. So I believe we should just open this to you all, or I don't know if you have public hearing first or questions from you all.
We were kind of waiting until you, all of your speakers came up, and then we'll just ask the questions now to you all.
Okay.
Okay, before we open up public hearing. Doug, we just start from your side. Is there any questions at all? Okay. All right.
I do have a few questions. I noticed
Yep.
that the driveway is included in the shaded area, which is the 100-year floodplain. Am I to assume that?
The 100-year floodplain, if I'm not mistaken, is the dotted area. What you see, though, there is that, I wouldn't call that a natural stream. That's the discharge from a VDOT culvert, although it does back up to there. So at the time of site plan, we would have to do some analysis on that and show that by filling in there, we do not have impact.
Okay, and then I know that the data center, again, you had mentioned they're starting to break ground on that and proceed. Could this become, because it's not designated for the C-store, could this become like a battery bank farm if that was needed by that company? And
Yes, in reality, it could. It could fit. I've actually done a battery energy storage. They call them BESS, B-E-S-S. I've done a BESS facility, and it could fit on a parcel of this size.
Okay, and then any concerns with the nearby farmland and fuel? That's fuel stations out front, correct? Parallel to the road.
fuel station would be up front in this
Okay.
concept.
Any concern with runoff or tanks in the ground?
No, and we've tried to address that with our proffers to go above and beyond what you would normally get for environmental controls, both on the below ground and above ground.
Okay, if this is not going to be a battery farm and it does become a car wash, and is the long bays in the back, well, where's the car wash in there? I don't see it.
The car wash is actually a bay at the C-store. The second building, the long building you see in the back, is what I'll call a small bay, multiple-use warehouse-type building. We call them flex buildings.
Okay, so not like a garage shop? No. Okay.
No, at least that's not what we're anticipating, no.
Okay.
In fact, I believe, did we not proffer out no outdoor work on? Yeah, we proffered out any kind of outdoor work,
Okay.
in storage.
And then I know with new car washes, you have to use a lot of reclaimed water in filtering that water. Is that the intention here, since you don't have a lot of access?
We don't have it tied down yet, but I think that would be the intention. My understanding is that almost all new car washes are recycled water these days.
All right, and just for the record, you have more experience with battery farms than convenience stores? Assumably. Do you have more experience with battery farms or convenience stores?
Actually, I've done one convenience store, and it was in this county, and I've done one battery farm, and it was in Ohio.
Okay. So you're equal. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay. I'm a little unfamiliar with battery farms, but would that require an individual substation to be on the same parcel?
It would not have to be on the same parcel. I know from doing the rezoning on the 85 acres adjacent, Mr. Burton, that there is a planned substation there. You need to be very near a substation for a battery farm. You don't have to have it immediately adjacent.
Okay. So that's the community concern I've heard, is that this gets rezoned, the other campus expands. Is there going to be a substation? Do we have the buffering we would normally have for that? We could say a more intense use, even though we know traffic is less intense, say, for that than the C-store. But, so I guess that's part of my general concern. Is the buffering from the RA and agricultural going to be robust enough or are you willing to promise that if you go that direction?
Yeah, we are willing to do the proffer, and it's in the proffers now, the 50-foot buffer, and we are willing to supplement the buffer in the areas, you can kind of make it out on the sketch. You can see it in the background. There's trees up towards the front, and there's trees up towards the back, but in the middle, it really will need some supplemental plantings. We're willing to do the supplemental vegetation.
Okay. And so based on proffer 2H, public utilities, you'd exclude public utilities, including power plants and other similar facilities. Does that mean you're excluding a substation?
Yes. To tell you the truth, our intent here is not to have this as a data center site. It's actually, it doesn't lay out for a data center. That's the first thing we tried, quite frankly, and we couldn't get it to lay out properly. There is no intent right now to make this a supplemental use to the adjacent parcel, quite frankly. In fact, part of the problem is, one of the comments that VDOT has made, and I know that you have all seen it, VDOT always asks for interparcel connectors if at all possible. They would like for the data center to access back through this property to Zachary Taylor Highway intersection. We have a couple problems with that. Number one is this very large floodplain, and number two would be a shared entrance. So data centers, due to their security and redundancy and reliability requirements, they would not share a driveway with somebody else. And additionally, because you would have to have constant access no matter what, which data centers need, you would have to build a structure that would span the entire floodplain. You'd have to be able to pass it in the 100-year storm. You know, a typical VDOT crossing is only like a 15-year storm, but that's not going to be acceptable to a data center. So our intent is not to really meld this together with the data center.
Okay. And one additional question on this. I remember discussing the site plan for the other parcel, and there was a discussion of a pedestrian path, and I can't remember whether that was closer to the VDOT right-of-way or whether that was part of the interworkings of the campus. And I'm contemplating, how does that make pedestrian connectivity for the way future come down to that C-store?
Yeah. I'm trying to recall back to that site plan when we...
Well, there was a lot of talk about the
Yeah.
path and
I
the 5 and
believe it was
16.
internal to the site. I don't believe we had anything that was external as far as...
In other words, not a
Yeah, we're not
concrete.
looking for pedestrian connectivity between the sites.
All right, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Just a couple questions. So I'm still confused as to the use of this. I know you want to make it as broad as possible.
Yeah.
I've heard there's going to be maybe a data center. Now I just heard you say it's not going to
No,
be a data center.
we tried to lay a data center out. That was the very first thing we did, and it did not work here.
Okay. So the plan right now is a C-store, a gas station, a car wash, and a storage center?
The car wash was added primarily for the TIA, for the traffic study, to try to make it the most intense potential use. I don't believe that, without sharing things that aren't public yet, in talking with the C-store operators that we've been talking with, I'm not sure that we would really end up with a car wash, quite frankly. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but it has been included for the purposes of the transportation impact, the traffic
Okay,
impact.
but car wash, C-store, warehouse, does
Yeah.
that include, is that the summation of the possible uses of this?
Really, and we proffered out a number of the uses
Right.
within the zone, but there could be other, well, we have the whole list.
My issue, I
Yeah.
guess, is
Yeah.
depending upon the use, the impacts to the
Yeah.
area change.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's why we've gone with the most impact for the purposes of presenting it, for both traffic impact, what we believe would be the visual impact, the impact of what it would look like from adjacent properties. This, we think, is the most intense potential use.
I think in traffic it is, but if I think of a data center, or I don't know how big a battery storage facility is that 50 feet high? Is that 100 feet high? I mean, that's a significant change in the impact to the area.
Would we even be allowed to do battery storage here? I don't know.
At this point, we'd have to look at the zoning ordinance. We haven't even considered that for this
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, because we
But
never-
That's part of staff's
we never
concerns,
considered
though, so, of trying to narrow down the use a little bit, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. let's see what else I have here. And to get back to the water and the sewerage issue. Tell me if I'm incorrect, you said that you changed your proffer to make it that you would connect if it got within 300 feet, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you talked about that connection being made within 12 months? 12 months of what?
You want to talk?
Within 12 months of it being readily available.
Okay, so if it gets within 300 feet, within 12 months of the time it becomes
We'd be
within
connected.
300 feet? Okay.
Yes, sir. And then I also added that we would go ahead and start the permitting once the permitting of the public utilities is started as well. We wouldn't wait until that entire process is done, it's physically there, and then start. We'd want to start as soon as possible.
And until that happens, there's adequate drain field and there's adequate water in terms of wells to provide the water?
That's our understanding, yes. And we've done the technical reports for drain fields and water, yeah.
To be really honest, we don't want to do that. We really think we're going to have to time this around when the public water and sewer is coming with the adjacent use. It gets very expensive to do temporary drain fields, because I think under the new county ordinances, I don't believe we could probably do pump and haul here, or it would be very restrictive. So we would have to have a temporary drain field, which is a very expensive undertaking for what might be a short period of time. I think the reality is that you really cannot make these improvements until the public water and sewer is available.
Okay,
So-
so would you accept that as a condition of this?
So we think that even though it would be expensive, we'd want to have the site economically actionable as soon as possible. That really would be driven by the tenants that we're working with and what they would accept. So if we had somebody that was ready to go, of course, with zoning in hand, that would accept a temporary use of a private system, which then would hook up to the public utilities once available, then we'd be acceptable to that.
Okay, so you want to keep the option available to be able to
Yes, sir.
use wells and
Some private system, exactly.
drain field?
Yes, sir.
So if you have a car wash, can the wells provide enough water for a car wash?
Not sure if those are the same recycling,
Okay,
right,
okay,
yeah,
okay. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, Ms. Thorne.
Okay. Michael?
Yeah.
So I looked at the illustrative drawing, 'cause it's
Yeah.
not a site plan.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, when I go to the Southern States fuel station out there on 29, they got all these tractor trailer trucks coming in and out of there. And that is a major highway, so it looks really tight. It looks like a lot of stuff on a little bit of space, because the warehouse is taking up maybe perhaps, and the store doesn't look like it has a lot of parking. I see where the apron is for the fuel storage, but it just looks like it's very crowded, and you can't really go around that building, and you only got the one in and out, and then the turn radius to come into the fuel tanks, et cetera. So it seems like that's gonna change. I don't see that that's the site plan. It's just a little drawing.
Potentially, but I would also steer you towards, there are some major C-stores in the area that don't really cater to the trucks, that really
They
are
don't
just.
allow them in there?
Hmm?
They don't even allow them in there?
Yeah, some of them don't.
Yeah.
So this, you bring something up, yes, this could become one bigger C-store, potentially.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
With, with additional pumps and,
Because where would you put a drain field if you had the temporary drain field? I mean, there's not even space per that picture.
there is room down by the pond, and there's some room up front between the C-store and the RA property to the east.
Okay, it just looks tight to me,
Yeah,
that's all.
well, this, again, this
Right,
is
it's
illustrative.
hypothetical
Yeah.
still. Okay, so then would you be willing to proffer and remove item H, and say that you will not put public utilities, power plants, battery places, or other similar on this property? Would that be something you would proffer?
I'll let the applicant speak.
I'm sorry, what was the question on H?
Would you be willing to remove the potential use where it says public utilities can be on this property? It's item H on the second page of your proffer
Public
statement.
utilities including power plants and other similar facilities.
Yeah, because meaning to me, that would be the battery storage facility. Would you delete that? I mean, if you're not gonna connect it to the data center, would it
Right.
matter?
Right.
Right now, Commissioner Thornhill, that is proffered out.
Yeah, that,
right
Oh,
now.
these are already
these,
out.
these are proffered, uses proffered out.
Okay, does that include the battery storage facility on that, under that
I would think
terminology?
a battery storage facility would be,
Added to it?
If it
For
can be
public
tied to the
uses.
public utility, it would
Yeah,
be
for public
considered a
uses,
similar
right.
facility. But if it's not tied to the public utility and it's for a private data center, that's to be up for debate.
yeah. I think anything that would be public utilities would fall under that for electrical uses.
So we could condition it? Can we condition it, Sam?
A true
Actually, with
battery,
the- with
battery
the rezoning,
energy
you
storage
can't
system.
condition anything, so.
A battery energy storage system has to be tied to something that produces energy.
Right.
So it would have to be tied to the grid. So what it's really doing is it's taking power off the grid late at night when the power's not being used and it's less expensive, and it's storing it to use it during the peak hours during the day. So it would be tied to a public utility. You would, otherwise you'd have to be generating power on the site.
Well, I guess the only thing, I guess the neighbors and comments that we've got
Yeah.
is Dominion's expanding everywhere on that corridor. So could that be a bunch of, whatever you call the little Dominion centers where all the utilities are? Substation,
Substation.
yeah. I mean, can that be, that could be included there?
Well, that would be public utility, which is,
You said
out.
no.
Proffered out,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, so then the other thing would be, you were saying, sir, that you wanted to make this property available without the water and sewer. You said it's too costly to do the temporary drain field, so now
The
we have.
reality is, I think we're gonna find it's gonna be too costly.
All right,
But they would like the ability, if somebody wanted to get in there and open, let me throw out some, let's say it takes another 3 years to get water and sewer to the 85 acres.
yeah,
And somebody could come on this site and be open within a year and would like to operate for 18 months or 24 months before that public water and sewer gets there. We'd have to measure whether their use can support the cost of a temporary drain field.
okay,
And if it can't, the use would have to wait for the public water and sewer.
okay. I guess I'd have to be convinced by looking at, hearing something from a drain field operator or somebody that can tell you, yes, it fits on there, or no, it doesn't fit on there. But I guess you could eliminate the flex space in the back and put it
Yes,
there.
Exactly.
So that's why it's kind
Yeah.
of all fluid at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I had right now. You are going to update this proffer statement then?
Yeah, so
Or you have to
clearly
because
we're
of
gonna
the
have some updates.
300 feet.
And we're anxious to hear what you want us to change, quite
Sure.
frankly, as part of any motion, so.
No
Okay.
purpose.
All right, I'm done, thank you.
Lance?
Sure. Just had a couple questions. Is there a rendering that you have for the canopy
No,
out front?
no idea at this point, Lance.
I'm just wondering how high, what the view's going to be from the road,
Yeah.
from
One
that
thing, that
perspective.
we are on an entrance corridor here, so we're subject to you all, I believe, are you all still the ARB in essence for the entry corridor?
That's
So you would have to approve the canopy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the entrance that's there, you're planning to save those existing trees that are there? The reason I say that is because you're going to have a difficulty meeting site distance requirements.
We're
at
gonna have
that
site
entrance,
distance, and
'cause
we're gonna have
You're going to have to take down the trees or limb them up at least.
Deceleration lane, yeah. I would venture to say, and I'm looking at our traffic consultant, that probably a lot of those are gonna have to come out, if not all.
I would think they've got to come
Yeah.
out because you're going to have problems
Yeah,
for safety issues.
yes.
For that, just more for buffering and things like that. So it might be more planted trees further back that are limbed up 6 feet or so to get the sight lines to work.
Yes.
Or something along those lines. Was a truck turn done on this? I know a lot of times with tanker trucks, there's some concerns that you can't get in and out and load without blocking other traffic trying to get into the C-store.
At this point, we have not run the turn lane, auto turn for the trucks, but at the site plan, we'll be doing the auto turn. But,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the layout is actually works or if it needs to be bigger. It's going to be
Right.
more extensive to what you have there as a possibility. And then the entrance across the street, or the lineup of the through lane from across the street is, it looks like, and it's hard to say, but it looks like the through lane across the street may not exactly line up with the entrance on the concept. That would have to be shifted a little bit to the
Yes.
right.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So you'd have to shift that to the right, take out the trees, make sure the turning radiuses works, whether you're running WB 62 or 67 or whatever you're running through there. The other item would be, for the secondary containment, obviously you're gonna have the
Interstitial with the monitoring.
The typical
Yeah.
monitoring that you do for that. But you'd also have to have spill kits and things like
Yes.
that on site.
Yeah, and we have contractors on call. We have to have multiple contractors lined up on call at all times under contract.
Under that. Will there be outdoor storage for the fuel station or for the C-store? In other words, will you have oil, are you gonna have, I don't know, air pumps, things like that? What would
Okay.
need to potentially be screened?
Okay,
is what I'm
again,
looking at.
this is concept, but I think with most C-stores, you would certainly have air vending, an air vending, probably on the outside of the parking, not up against the building. The only type of storage that I ever see on the outside of these C-stores with the particular folks we're talking to, sometimes they'll have like a propane cage to trade in a propane tank.
Yeah.
But we're not anticipating any large tanks or anything of that sort.
Okay. Yeah, it's usually a lot of times when, like, if it was a Sheetz or a Wawa or somebody like that, a lot of times they have predisposed how they want to have their layout, right? Because you're
Yeah.
going to basically do site selection based on what they're doing, and they already know where they want things. And a lot of times during the zoning, you'd be able to share that so that you know what you have to screen
Yeah.
and what the impacts are going to be. The other thing, was there an environmental study done? Was there a wetland study?
There
or,
was
perennial
wetlands,
stream
there was-
evaluation?
There was wetlands, there was a phase one done on the property, there was, they did a complete due diligence on the property.
So where are the wetlands on site? Are they all within the floodplain area?
Are they
Or
shown
do
on
you
the-
actually have a map showing where the pedestrian wetlands and things like that are?
You can kind of see them on here. This isn't, this image isn't intended to depict them, but there's an area kind of just north of the entrance, kind of a diamond-shaped area. And that's the wetland area. The rest of the hatched area is the floodplain. Yes, that area right there. That's that whole diamond area to the left a little bit too. There, yes, all of that is the wetland area.
Do you see any kind of perennial stream or wetland impacts with the project that you're going to have to go back to the Corps for?
We don't anticipate any.
Okay. And then I noticed on the comment response that Matt Marshall had made, they talk about that the VRM spreadsheet was ran for that design. And that basically, it says that purchase of all of the load reduction through nutrient credit purchases, since we are required to reduce it by less than 10 pounds, looking at load reduction by purchase of nutrient credits, but the proffer basically.
We proffered to do on-site. The staff was concerned about us not buying nutrient credits off-site, so I believe our proffer says, so we're gonna end up with a lot of BMPs here, a lot of, I could see.
Well, it's
a
just
wide-
more of a conflict, I
Yeah.
guess. I was seeing the response and I was looking at
Yeah,
the
no,
proffer, so I
the
just wanted to
proffer
confirm
states
that.
that we will do it all on-site,
Do it all on site, okay.
which I think is, I didn't bring it up earlier, thank you for bringing it up, I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
an important aspect.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to meet the requirements.
Yeah, it's.
Based on the efficiency of the facility that you're
Yeah,
proposing.
it's gonna be hard probably to meet the requirements here, but we're making that commitment, the staff asked us to.
Okay. So, and then I think the last thing I had, car wash. I think Ray or Nate, maybe you had asked the question about the car wash. Typically, it's a DEQ violation if you're piping, soapy water into a stream. So you're not going to be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Or shouldn't be allowed to do that. Otherwise, you'd have illicit discharge.
Yeah.
For that purpose. So
Yes.
that's all I have. Thank you.
What's the primary soil type?
I'm sorry,
What is the primary soil type?
the primary soil type, I don't know if we have the soils map with us, I don't know, I'll be honest with you.
Okay, what is the land currently being used for?
The land currently is vacant. There was a residence on this property some years back.
There's no cattle, nothing on it?
No, it's vacant at this time.
And with the convenience store, what are we looking at in terms of hours of operation, noise, lighting? Is this a 24/7? Are we letting tractor trailers come in outside of, like, to fuel up themselves instead of deliver fuel?
I couldn't tell you about the hours because we don't know who the end user will be yet. We did make a proffer on lighting.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it's
That
towards
was
the end. The applicant will commit to energy conservation by utilizing compliant LED lighting on the subject property. They'll ensure that all outdoor fixtures will be within maximum permitted heights and otherwise aimed, located, and maintained so as to reduce the adverse impacts of excessive glare and unnecessary light trespass, sky glow, and overlighting. The applicant will comply with all outdoor standards set forth in Article 32, including but not limited to the submission of an appropriate photometric plan for any applicable commercial uses.
Okay, so noise is still a concern. I mean, you got a house not that far away. If you got tractor trailers coming in there, hitting their J-brake at 2 o'clock in the morning, those people will hear that noise. That is a major concern of mine. Water usage is a concern. We just had one of the worst droughts we've ever had. There is plenty of farming that goes on very, very close to that property, and that is a huge concern. The battery farm thing coming up tonight, you know, what's the explosion risk? Are we putting the people that live in that house at significant impact with an explosion risk, even with the C-store? What does that look like? You talked about propane tanks. Obviously, that adds to the risk of explosion. And the other thing is that is a pretty significant wildlife area right now. So if you go in there and you put something in that property, that's going to push that wildlife out. So now we're pushing more stuff to 29 and 3, which is going to cause more accidents of people hitting deer and everything else.
So, the deceleration noise that you're concerned about actually happens now because you're coming off of a stretch of Route 3, which has a higher speed limit, and it starts dropping down to 45 miles per hour here, if I'm not mistaken, 45. And you have acceleration or deceleration due to the light that is there. I hear all of your concerns. I can tell you that no matter where you locate the C-store or even the light use warehouse, you're changing the use of the property, and you're having some impacts. We will do everything under the ordinance to minimize the impacts.
I understand, but even with the way that it sits right now, those trucks, as someone who holds a CDL, they have plenty of room to stop and brake without hitting the J-brake and making that noise. So that's not a current issue.
I don't know how to answer that quite frankly.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Mr. Price?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, thanks for your presentation tonight. Maybe the battery storage farm had not come up previously in your thinking, but if something like that were located there, how would that, do you have any idea whether or not it could be tied into the Dominion system via power lines that are already there, or are we looking at power lines coming from someplace else and then going to someplace else that would receive that power?
That's why I think you can't do it based on the proffer, because it has to be tied into a transmission system. It's not a low voltage, at the minimum, it's medium voltage. It's like 34,500 volts or above. It's probably more at a higher voltage, like 115,000 kV. So I just don't see how, you have to store energy, you have to get energy into the batteries, and then you have to get it back into the system. So you essentially have to have it tied into a transmission line. And what we're saying is that we will not have anything that's part of a public utility. That would be tied into a public utility.
All right, but you don't think that there would be power lines that exist already there that could
No.
support
No,
that?
no.
Okay.
No, based upon our knowledge of when we zoned the 85 acres next door, those lines don't exist today out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you'd looked at using this as part of a data center campus and really couldn't make it work. But I got a question for staff. So this is a part of the combined town-county tech zone. In fact, this is the tail end of the county portion of that. So when county staff was looking at this, did you look at that property and assess that it would be usable as a part of a data center campus?
It was not, there was no current plans to use it as such. The only thing that we have was to the north of this property. It was just included as a potential expansion of that, which the applicant did pursue, as you heard tonight, so. And that has not been changed.
Okay, so potentially, I mean, so their assessment that it's not really suitable to use as a part of a data center campus makes sense from a staff perspective?
It does for a number of reasons. It just has not been reflected in any changes in the tech zone. It's still shown as part of the tech
Yeah,
zone.
okay.
Mainly because of the floodplain that Mr. Arm has
Yeah.
mentioned already previously.
Yeah.
It was left in as part of a potential need for that project because of the intersection alone primarily.
To-
But the data center project will have a right-in, right-out on Route 3, and that can be fully served with that right-in, right-out movement there. But this was always thought as a potential just because of that intersection primarily at 522 and Route 3.
Yeah, Sam is right. Because of the environmental area, it makes it next to impossible to tie it to the 85 acres.
Yeah.
And it would have to be a standalone campus. And we did some layouts, and it just doesn't seem to work for a standalone data center
Okay.
campus.
Also, sir, your proffer lists all the uses that would not be considered, or that would be proffered out. But you didn't proffer specifically uses that you would pursue. And you provided a fairly specific concept here with this convenience store and the warehouse. So why not just include this in the proffer statement? Or take the 2 or 3 most likely things that might be built there if the rezoning was successful and say these things, these 2 or 3 things might be built.
There's, I've been rewriting zoning ordinances for many years of my life when I was in municipal work. There's inclusive zoning and there's exclusive zoning, and there's not really anything in between. You either write a zoning ordinance, a LI, to exclude the uses that you shouldn't have on it, or you write it to include the uses that you should have on it. The problem is when you start trying to put bookends on it, you start leaving out what are some of the good uses that you probably could realistically put on the property. So I just think it's too hard to try to identify just the few uses that you think could end up on the property. I think you're limiting yourself too much by trying to put bookends on it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, but that, of course, opens up, for us, I think, a big door of possibilities that could pop up there, which is a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, well, but think about it. You have other zone properties in the county that are vacant that you have the same possibility. Whatever is allowed within the ordinance. Here, at least, we're limiting, by asking you for this zoning, we're proffering to you that we will at least cut out, we think, what are probably the most offensive of the allowed uses. They are allowed, but we think that you would not want them. So we're cutting them out.
Okay. And one final question
Yeah.
for staff. So Sam, in terms of these folks' timeline, let's like say, for instance, if they went away tonight and went back and reworked the proffer statement a little bit or addressed other concerns that staff has had and then come back, do they have enough time before they run out of process in order to do that?
In this particular case, they do, because it is a rezoning. Conditional use permits, which we'll be looking at hopefully here in a little while, those do have a tighter time frame for review, but a rezoning has a 12-month time frame, and right now we're within that clock. So the applicant does have the ability to defer if they wanted to, and there's also opportunity to defer in between the Planning Commission and the board meeting too. If the Planning Commission renders a recommendation one way or another tonight, the applicant can ask for a deferral before they get to the board as well. So there is flexibility with the rezoning, and the Planning Commission has a little bit of flexibility as well with that, if you desire that. So.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Mr. O'Ham?
Sam, I had a quick question. The possibility of rewriting the proffers, can we send it to the board and in between you take care of the new proffer, the revised proffer? Because there's a few tweaks. It wasn't like tons of things. So
Yeah,
we'd be
yeah,
delaying.
Ultimately, a proffer statement needs to come and should come and is required to come from an applicant, right? So
Right.
you can suggest things that you have concerns about what you all have done tonight. The applicant can listen to those and redraft a proffer statement to try to mitigate those. That can
Right.
come back to you all potentially. It can come back to staff. We usually look at them. We pass off our comments as well through the process, which we've done.
So I was just trying to see if we can take this forward tonight with the proffers being trusted by us to let staff review the changes that we've
Sure. Yeah, the
suggested,
planning-
if they even do them. I
Right.
mean, we can only
Right.
request.
That's right, yeah, and the planning commission, you all have taken that approach before.
Right.
And that's an option for the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
could.
Go ahead, Nate.
Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned with, I see that pretty much to the two gentlemen that deal with water and building, whatever's going there needs water, pretty much, if it's going to be viable for you guys to sell it. How come there was no plans drawn up or just shown, I know this is a site plan, but something as, rudimental as that, as, like, just to show us how it would cut through the property? Are those, Sam, could you bring up that one map, or, sorry, Morgan, whoever's doing it? The purple and the green, the adjoining properties. Is that safe to say, are you getting rid of the house that's there now?
There are no structures on the property today.
Yeah.
The house that was there was removed some years back. That was Miss James'
Yeah.
home. That has been removed. So we believe that the only way that we can realistically tie into public water and sewer is when you look at the 85 acres to the north, which is that sort of purple color that you're looking at there. That is the data center property, and they're proposing to bring in large diameter water and sewer under Jack and Boer, under James Madison Highway, under the bypass. And in the, what I'll call the most easterly corner of that property, closest to us, the county water and sewer master plan shows a pump station there for sewage. So we would be taking our sewer line, our private sewer line, over to tie into that.
Okay.
And then we would make our water, they haven't laid out their water on the property yet, so we don't even know where we're
Okay.
aiming to tie into. But we know that we would be going under the 100-year floodplain with our water connection and over onto that property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we're now going to open the public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to speak to this application, just raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and then we will have you come forth and give your full name for the record. Anyone? Okay. We declare the public hearing closed. We've heard much about what the intention is for this particular area, and I know that it's been sitting there for a long time, and we knew that something eventually would come in there with the way that when the 4 lanes came in and all. So, but it seems like you all have thought this out, especially with the when you say you proffer not to put these things in, we don't see that too often. But I'm glad to see that with some of those things, because they were things that I wanted to question. But a lot of good questions were asked, and I think we've covered a lot of things here tonight, and hopefully it's enough to go forth. So if there's no other discussion, the chair entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that case Z-461-23-1 be denied due to the vagueness and the severe potential impacts to the community, the neighbors around there, and the environment.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I would deny it if, I would vote to deny if there were no changes out of tonight. But if we could table it for a month, and then the applicant rework the proffers, talk to the staff about other concerns that have come up in this discussion and what staff has had, because apparently this was deferred for a month. Staff provided the report, and the last month they could not support this, and I don't think staff heard from the applicant for the whole month. Is that right, Sam?
We did hear from the applicant in regards to the technical memorandum that they sent for traffic that Grove Slade provided. But that's the only additional information that we've had. There has been discussions, as Mr. Arm alluded to, with the town, as far as sewer. The applicant didn't submit anything in regards to that, but they did answer some questions tonight that came up. So I do think there's room for more information. That's staff's position right now.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I'm a little uncomfortable sort of working this out on the fly tonight and just allowing them to go back and get it in the shape before it goes to the board. Personally, I would like to see it again before it goes to the board.
Well, and that's fine, and from that standpoint, but one thing that we do want to understand is, and some comments were made by staff, where if we did vote on it and made those suggestions of things that we want to have addressed before it goes to the board, we can do that. And, you know, not have to slow the, you know, the process up, so that the staff can review it, and if it's not complied to, then, you know, before it goes to the board, then, you know, they understand. So, but just sharing it. Any other discussion before?
Yeah,
Okay,
quick comment?
go ahead.
I guess further discussion might be okay. My biggest concern is, Commissioner Pierce asked for, can you restrict this a little bit more? And I think that would help a lot. I think I heard the answer was no, we can't do that. Still a lot of concerns, I think, about the drain field and so forth. Does it support it and so forth? So I don't know if the applicant is willing to be flexible on some of those things or to make those changes. That's my only comment.
But we have, yeah, and any other discussion there, because we have a motion on the floor. and-
Right. we
Yeah,
have
I just-
discussion still.
And,
I got-
yeah, just,
Go ahead.
So they've already deferred it once, and now if it was deferred again, giving them another month, whatever, like, how long are we gonna keep dragging this out? Because it's still going to be a vague use, and we won't have any better idea of what's gonna go there. To me, deferring it or doing anything besides voting it down, we're just beating a dead horse.
okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
Okay, so I can see both sides, but it seems as though this use, if it's a convenience store, a warehouse, et cetera, that is an area that is designated for growth, and it's an intersection, it's a major intersection. It makes sense to me that it is a convenience center. It is a substation for Dominion, I don't want it either. But I think that the design, the layout, the intended purpose is fine. I don't really have any problem with that. The vagueness, we have a set of proffers that's pretty specific here. We can't force anything. So we're here to try to be give and take. And I don't see anything in this proffer statement that is undoable. I just feel like that this is an okay place to put this, and I don't really see any reason to deny it, but the neighbors aren't that close. They're all sitting there on, 55, 60 mile an hour traffic noise. It is very noisy anyway where they're living. Do I think that a convenience store would make any more noise? No. So I don't have any problem with it. So that's why I'll vote.
You know, one thing that I look at also, when we open a public hearing and see, the neighbors or those who are around, come in and speak to the case, and we didn't have anyone, who would be close by to even speak to, this evening. So that, with that, I would vote to move it with the conditions that we would like to have reviewed by the staff. So that's my take on it. But if there's nothing else, we have a vote on the floor, no other discussion. All in favor of denying this application, raise your right hand. And all opposed. Okay, Morgan? Okay.
So I have opposed to denying the application is Mr. Grover, Mr. Burton, Ms. Thornhill, and Mr. Kilby. So it would be 5-4, 5 being for the denial.
5 being for the no.
No? Have I got that wrong?
You didn't count Sanford.
You didn't
Oh,
count
I'm
it.
sorry.
Okay. Wanna just do it again? Okay?
I think
All
we're
right,
good.
okay. All in favor of the motion, and that is to deny it, raise your right hand.
Mr. Chairman, you might
Okay.
want, you might want to
Okay,
ask.
this is the last time, okay, that we're going to do, okay. All in favor of the motion to deny the application, raise your right hand. Okay. All opposed, raise your right hand. Okay. So the motion is carried. I mean, excuse me, the motion is denied. Okay,
Motion.
gotcha. Motion is denied. All right, that motion is denied. At this time now, the chair entertain another motion. Ms. Thorne?
I would like to make a motion to approve and send this case forward to the Board of Supervisors, and it is case number Z 460-23-1. And I want to send it with the proffer statement revisions that we discussed this evening to be staff reviewed and make sure that it's complete per the notes of our executive secretary. And I think that's it.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay. Motion has been approved and it'll be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we hear you loud and clear on the proffer changes. I think you'll find that we may be going above and beyond what you've asked
Okay,
for.
thank you very much. That's all of our old business. Now we'll move to our new business. Neil?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have case U 915-24-1. It's a request by Raymond Bender of Our Father's House or Christian Home to amend an existing conditional use permit to expand the assisted living facility per Article 3-2-2.3 of the zoning ordinance, and also in accordance with Article 17, use permits of the zoning ordinance. The properties are zoned A1 and RA, agricultural and rural area, and are located on Belpre Road, Route 684 in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on tax map 42, parcel 65A and 65B.
Mr. Chairman, members
Yes,
of the
sir.
commission, request here is a conditional use permit per Article 17 of the zoning ordinance, which is a little bit different criteria than you were looking at with that rezoning. Just as a reminder, staff received the application in full and accepted the application as complete. The agencies have reviewed the application. Those agency comments were included as part of your package information. Those are normal agency reviews, and comments were received from VDOT, Soil Water Conservation District, the Health Department in this particular case. On the property that's highlighted in red are the two properties that were, it's actually two different properties. It's not going to, my red highlighter is not going to show up on the red, but there's a property there that is undeveloped today. It's used as a hay field, and that's part of the property there to the east of the current operation that Mr. Bender has established with his wife and Our Father's House for a number of years, and they've been using this property as assisted living facility. They've actually probably, I think this is the 5th time over the many years that Mr. Bender and his family have been before the Planning Commission and the board. And that's been a good thing because they've grown. Each time they've grown their use on this property. They've provided a service that's needed in the community. And each time they've come forward with an expansion. You can see what they do today if you drive out there. What they're proposing is really more of the same. To expand on the property, the Celebration Drive would be expanded a little bit there to the north. You'd see some additional duplexes that are used today. There'd be potential of a new Harmony House that's located. That's a different idea. Mr. Bender can explain that tonight, but that would be some additional use of the property potentially. And then some units there on the property which would be a new property to what you're looking at, which would be that property to the east that's currently owned by Mr. Payne. and he has and consented to this application moving forward as well. Mr. Chairman, the staff identified in the staff report, not really concerns, but some potential conditions that the Planning Commission may want to look at moving forward. As the use is enjoyed today, there are two primary conditions. One limits the number of beds. That's why Mr. Bender's back here tonight, or number of units. He's looking to expand that beyond the 20 individual units that he's approved to do today. And then there's also a second condition that I wanted to bring attention to the Planning Commission, and that there's no further subdivision of the property with the exception of 2 family divisions. Mr. Bender does show on the concept plan, which was submitted, that we do have a copy of. And actually, while I'm talking, there's a better image of an aerial image that really shows the complex and the facility that they have, that they use today. But the concept plan does show some potential locations, and I don't know if I can find them really quickly on here or not, but some potential house, not only for themselves potentially, but also for caretaker home as well. Staff is not opposed to that at all. Just moving forward, it would be staff's recommendation to eliminate that no further subdivision condition, but didn't have it. Basically, if they wanted to subdivide, it would have to meet our ordinances, have to meet our subdivision ordinance, which is set the minimum acres requirements for that, a family division if they chose to move forward with a family division, but then potentially allow the other uses that you see on the concept plan. There would be the creation of an additional new entrance if the permit is granted a little bit further to the east on Belpre Road. That would need to be fully permitted by VDOT, site planned, the whole 9 yards moving forward. Soil and Water did talk about the expansion or need to produce an ENS and stormwater plan. Staff agrees. Each time with any expansion, especially of this size, it would require a stormwater review of what's there today, but then to incorporate any type of new growth with the driveways and the houses that are being built. Mr. Chairman, the staff doesn't identify any other major concerns other than those conditions. So if you wanted to reference those, we did include those in the staff report. And those are merely suggestions for the Planning Commission as you're reviewing this. It did include basically requiring a site plan, which they would be required to do anyway, but it would be in general conformance with this concept plan so that we don't see a drastic change, and I don't think they would intend to do that, but this concept plan could be issued as a condition of approval. Suggested a condition about lighting fixtures to make sure that they meet Article 32, which is our lighting ordinance, which basically means that they have to be shielded. They have to be directed downward and shielded so that there's no light runoff from the property. And that stormwater containment and controls are brought up to current state standards, which they would be required to do with the new expansion anyway. And that all dwelling units on the overall parent tract, are for family divisions, that they're met through the current subdivision ordinance. And I believe Mr. Bender's clear on those requirements and those conditions and doesn't object to them. But he is here with his team, I believe, tonight, and they can answer any questions that you might have, and I'm happy to answer questions too.
You want to ask him something now?
I want to say him something.
Go ahead, before we move.
Okay, so I have one quick question for you, Sam. So it's got, because it's 2 different parcels, and it's got the boundary between them, would they either abandon that boundary line or move it because you've got a facility and then parking split like that? Should it ever somewhere reverse back?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Thorne, that's a great question, and yes, to answer that question.
Right there, yeah.
Parking area that's proposed as conceptually drawn here, you see the property line going right through the middle of it, and to be able to keep that property line probably wouldn't work with this particular structure because of setback purposes.
Right.
So yes, if moving forward, if the contract agreement with this landowner here works out for Mr. Bender, most likely they would either eliminate that property line or remove that property line to be able to accommodate the planned use.
Unless but they can't move the whole thing over because of the topography?
No, but there could, they
right,
may not have to entirely do away with the track, but there would need to be some sort of boundary line adjustment.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Yes.
A question for Sam or Neil. Is there a set distance for length of access road? I know there is on some developments where you can't have so many so many lots before the next entrance and things like that. And I guess why I'm asking that is for fire and rescue, like if they're going to that last house on the left, they gotta go all the way up to that point, but then they don't really have a large enough turnaround to basically be able to get back out and
Sure.
things like that, and what the width of the roads need to be for something like that.
Yeah, so that particular provision is found in our subdivision ordinance, so without going through the subdivision process, that's not a standard that they would have to meet. That doesn't mean that it's not a concern that the planning commission can bring up. And actually, I believe Mr. Jacobs with Soil and Water brought up a very similar concern in his comment review. So that's something that the applicant could look into as far as connecting the road to a loop road. They do propose a loop concept, as you can see here, which would be a little bit easier for fire and rescue services if needed.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So Sam, my question is, so we're in a situation here where Mr. Payne owns the property on the left and Mr., no, Bender on the left and Mr. Payne on the right. He's asking for an amendment to an existing conditional use permit, but that conditional use permit was only for the one property, right?
The original permit, yes.
Okay, so is this really an amended one, or are we asking for a new?
It's both.
It's both.
And that's why we advertised it with this particular parcel here with the consent of the landowner, and then Mr. Bender, and they currently have this piece here. So it is both. It's an amendment and a new use, but it's in reality an expansion of the existing use. It just happens to incorporate a new piece of
Okay.
property.
And is someone going to purchase, is there going to be one owner for both of these properties in the future?
I believe that's the intention. Definitely, make sure that you clarify that with the applicant, but I believe that is the intention.
Okay, so if that happens, that's great. The conditional use applies to both. What happens if that plan to purchase falls through? What happens to the conditional use permit? Who does it apply to, or what does it apply to?
That's a great question. The conditional use permit, the planning commission could recommend a condition that it goes to our father's house only. We've done that before. Or you could allow it to remain with the land. And if that's the case, if Mr. Bender doesn't end up being the landowner, then the landowner that gets the permit could potentially enjoy that permit. I don't believe that's the intention here at all. And most likely moving forward, the arrangement that the landowners have, it would probably enjoy a different use if this permit's not approved. And vice versa, if it is approved and the land agreement doesn't work out, it probably still wouldn't happen as well, most likely. But it could, unless the commission put a condition or recommended a condition to the board, and the board put a condition that kept it to our father's house only for this permit. Staff's not opposed to that recommendation. We didn't suggest that recommendation as far as a condition, but that could be a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is the applicant, representative for the applicant, if you would come forth and give your full name for the record, please?
Thank you, Chairman Reeves, and members of the Planning Commission for giving us this time and allowing me to speak. We have the 21-bed assisted living facility currently, then we also have currently 20 independent living cottages. And we've been here since, he said we've been up here a few times, but the first time was in 1999. So that doesn't mean I'm old, it just means it's been a few years ago. But anyway, so my family has been ministering to elderly persons since actually 1975 when we started the first facility for elderly in Stewart's Draft, Virginia. And so I know I can speak for my wife, I think for my wife and I both, that we feel it's a calling from God. More than just a business venture is how we look at it. And we see it as ministry to the elderly. So I'm here this evening because my wife and I are the owners of our father's house, Christian Home. And as Sam noted, we've been growing through the years as we believe the Lord has been leading us, and it's been growing in that respect. So what we're doing tonight primarily, I realize all that looks a little bit confusing, but we were trying to avoid having to come back several different times again. So Anyway, I think the first thing we'd be interested in doing is the additional 12 cottages that you all were looking at on the left-hand side there. At least it's on my left-hand side, where Celebration Road is, and it extends around in that circle, and we can certainly, you know, talk about extending that road on down for fire safety vehicles and so forth too. So that's the main, I mean, that would be initially what we'd be interested in doing. We'd have to kind of do it in phases, if that makes sense. So that would be initially what we're doing. Now, that's 12 new units. Now, on Dwayne Payne's property, he's sitting back here, so he said that's okay. We'd look at it like a boundary adjustment, you know. And I was assuming that the special use permit would come to our father's house. So that's fine if y'all want to put that proffer on there. That's what we were kind of assuming. And, you know, Mr. Payne has to still, there's negotiations going on with Mr. Payne, and so we'll see whether we actually end up getting that property. If we don't get that property, we may not be able to do part of the plan that's on there. We'll see how that goes, and then that would also mean we'd have to probably come back and redo everything. We feel like there's probably 75, 80% chance that we might be able to get that property. And so initially, the two things that we'd be most interested in doing is just that, those 12 new cottages on the left there, and then the community center. It shows the parking lot for the community center bordering Mr. Payne's property, straddling his property. If we ended up not getting that property, then probably the parking lot would end up over on our property somewhere, and there'd just be a longer walking distance to that, that type of thing. I know Sam mentioned the Harmony House, so what's always a challenge when you're running a facility for the elderly is staffing, you know, especially if you want to get good staffing. And my family, going back to 1975, our concept has always been to have some of the staff live on the campus. Like my wife and I, we live there personally. And so, right now, and so we would like to have the opportunity maybe to have a few other staff living there. So that's the concept of the Harmony House is, the term harmony is because we would have maybe three couples, elderly couples living in the downstairs. They don't want to go stairs. But we would, on the other hand, it wouldn't cost that much more to add a two-story building, and then you could have staff, maybe 3 staff living upstairs, 3 elderly downstairs. And then, of course, that's a real blessing to us because we'd be getting staff that are available to fill in emergencies and help us with oversight, et cetera. So we called it Harmony House because you have the younger and the older living together, and that's a pretty neat concept to begin with. The name Our Father's House, we initially, some people think we meant our Heavenly Father. We really meant that we want it to be a place where the elderly are treated as fathers and mothers, not just patients. And, okay, I mean,
No?
that's whatever you want.
Okay. All right. You were just waiting for me to stop you.
That's
weren't
right.
you?
I thought it was-
Okay. But no, what a wonderful thing you are doing, you and your wife and family. And I visited a friend, and actually he used to be on the commission, Phillips, Ian Phillips.
That's right.
When they were
yes.
there, and that was the first
Yes.
time. I didn't even know it was
Okay,
there.
okay.
And when I went in there, what an amazing
Yes.
concept. And
I think Mr.
and we need
Phillips was
more.
on the commission in 1999
Yeah.
when we came here.
And we
Yes.
need even even more of that in our community, because some of us are aging, not all of us, but some of us are aging, and
Yes.
I almost
That's right.
sold my house when I went to visit him. I almost sold my house so my wife and I could move out there.
That's right.
Yeah, less grass to cut and all.
That's right.
So,
Yes.
but no, but we, thank. Do we have any questions for the applicant? No?
I do.
Okay.
So as it was mentioned, that the access for emergency equipment and being able to turn around and come back out, are you willing to make some kind of a, I don't even know the terminology, but a turn radius so that they can get back out? Because it looks like the dead end kind of concept is on there now. Are you willing to accommodate that?
I realized that was on the transportation comments as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'd have any problem with that, to simply make it a loop instead of just a
Whatever, somehow
one-way
make it
road
out.
there, yeah.
Okay, so, all right,
That should be fine, yes.
okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Price?
Sir, thank you very much. What's the population of your facility now, and what you estimate it will be at full build-out? Any idea?
Okay. Like there's kind of two parts of what we do there. The one part is the assisted living facility, and that is for where we actually provide care for somebody that is not able to take care of their own activities of daily living. So that means they might be in wheelchairs and so forth. We have 21 in that facility, and the whole concept of the Benders and our Father's House through the years has been that we wanted to do that smaller, because our mission is to be ministry, and it's more conducive to ministry when you do it on a smaller basis. So we're not proposing at all to go any larger on the assisted living facility. That's going to remain at 21 beds. The cottages currently are at 20 cottages. And so, like, if the Planning Commission approved everything that was proposed this evening, that would be increased from 20 to 42 cottages instead of 20, basically doubling there.
And the cottages are one or two people if you have a married couple? in there?
They can be either one. Yeah, we have a little bit of both there right now. You have some. They're mostly individuals, but then when you have a husband and a wife, they could be two people.
Have you discussed your expansion plans with your neighbors? I mean, to the people who live nearby?
I think so. I think we actually had a meeting last evening with the Wilks and a few people there, so they were all in favor.
Okay. I did notice that VDOT had a comment or a recommendation that you look at improving the existing entrance into a commercial entrance.
Sure.
And then that being the only entrance, and you sort of have a loop road on the inside. Is that something that you think you could do or consider doing?
My wife and I had two different opinions on that, so I don't know if you want her to talk or me.
So we want to know what your wife said. That's the one that matters.
We would consider that, yes.
And then just one final question. I think Mr. Payne still does, like cuts hay, and his lot is still in agriculture. So
Correct.
even if you've constructed some on his property, would that stay in agriculture for the property that's not built on? So that it doesn't come completely out of agricultural use?
Okay.
Well, Mr. Payne would probably know that, I guess.
I think, I'm guessing we would have to end up taking the whole property out of agriculture, I believe.
Yeah.
I think if
Staff
Mr. Payne.
help us with that one. Hold on a second.
Mr. Chairman, to Commissioner Price's question, most likely would need to come out of land use, probably at that point. As far as practical use, for continued farming practices, I mean, it's possible, but if you were to look at that site plan, the proposal uses, a lot of that additional parcel. Whether it could be, the right half past that one proposed drain field area potentially could be continued with the existing operation, but it would be a small portion of that property.
Okay. So your initial plans then, if you get the conditional use permit amendment done, is that you'll build the additional 12 cottages and then the other pieces of it as you can in the coming years?
Exactly, yes. That kind of like phase 1, phase 2
Okay,
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
This time now, open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this application? Just raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and come up and give your full name for the record. Yes, sir. And Morgan, you did give Mr. Bender's full name, because I didn't get him the. No, he did. Yeah, he did. He didn't say it. I was like, I didn't hear it. But okay.
Raymond Bender, though.
We got you. We got you. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Corey Clinton, Stevensburg District, and off of Glenella. So this we're talking about Belpre here. And, you know, first, it's really heartwarming to see this application in front of you, because this is truly, truly a asset and a benefit to Culpeper.
Yeah.
Not only of the family and the service that he provides in ministry, but the outreaching support into the community. So there was a question if the family or bordering neighbors are aware of this. I can be a personal testimony to an absolute yes. He's deeply enriched into the local community. I have grandchildren who volunteer there, and he's worked with them and matured them and offering assistance, and even to the point where she's getting her CNA through that. There's volunteers in the community who come there and worship and minister and sing, and the connectivity that this provides to the community is truly just an amazing asset. So it's really refreshing to see this type of application in front of you, compared to some of the other applications we see with the data centers and solar plant and all that kind of stuff. This is a true 100% asset to the community. So I really encourage you to I'd like to see a 100% unanimous vote and support for the community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Declare the public hearing closed. Any other discussion?
I had one question, more for Sam. On the current parcel, and I can't see it very well because I'm getting old, but I guess it's conserved open space that's in the back? That's the hatched area, is that correct? Up against the railroad?
It's not just your eyes, Mr. Kilby.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, that is labeled as conserved open space, and maybe Mr. Henchy can explain what that is, or Mr. Bender. I don't know if that's intended to be part of their stormwater plan or just a buffer against the railroad track property. I'm not sure what that is.
I guess my big question would be, I see it only on that parcel, but we're adding the other parcel to it. Why wouldn't it continue across the whole area? That's all.
Right, and I would not be able to answer that question right now. I don't know what that.
If we, for that purpose, if Mr. Henchy, you want to, we can get that answered for you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Marvin Henchy with Henchy & Baines Engineering. That actually was set aside for, he currently has a VSMP permit for his site, and that was set aside for that permit.
So it's not anticipated that you're going to need additional
We
conserved
probably
open
will
space to
need,
meet BMP VRM requirements?
we're going to either need to purchase credits or set aside quite a bit. But yeah, that was just for the last expansion he did on his current site.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it should be on this application, which has the continue it through. That was the only really
They probably
question I
will.
had. Gotcha.
We haven't gotten to the final engineering yet, though.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
What does that mean, that permit that you just mentioned?
VSMP, it's a DEQ permit. That was, his last expansion, he was required to go through DEQ to get approval because he had exceeded his previous, if you exceed an acre of land disturbance, you have to get a VSMP permit for DEQ. And what happened, the previous expansion, he was under an acre, but then this one, it was considered a common plan development, so we had to go ahead and get a VSMP permit. And part of the water quality, you can either provide facilities, I think it's been mentioned before, bioretention or whatever. And he does have a wet pond that we got some credit for, but in order to get more credit, we dedicated the conserved open space in the back. And I think even after that, I believe he did have to purchase about, I think, 0.16 pounds of phosphorus to. But anyway, that's an existing open space.
Okay.
And I imagine on the new part, we're going to have to go through DEQ again for a new permit, and we're going to have to, we don't have to, but it probably would be wise to dedicate more open space rather than purchase credits.
Okay. All right. No other discussion, the chair entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that case U-915-24-1 be approved with the conditions laid out by staff in their report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Excuse me. Any other discussion? We can do that now.
Well, would the condition be, it goes with this particular applicant, not just anybody else?
I'd like to amend my motion
Okay.
that the permit is solely to our father's house.
Second? Okay. Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. Okay. We will forward it to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation of approval. And you got a possible 2 new applications tonight too. Lance, Mr. Kilby, and myself. Okay. All right. Okay. Go right ahead. All right, Neil, we go.
Yes,
Next
Mr.
case.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have case U 2245-23-1. It's a request by Ryan Van Hoven of Deep Roots Home and Garden Center for a conditional use permit to allow the construction and operation of a garden center and plant nursery per Article 31, Agricultural Enterprise Use Permit, and in accordance with Article 17, use permits generally of the zoning ordinance. The property is zoned A1 agricultural and is located at the corner of Greens Corner Road, Route 666, and Stevensburg Road, Route 663, in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on Tax Map 43, Parcel 15.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the parcel that you see highlighted in red is the parcel that Mr. Van Hoven has a contract for purchase, contingent upon, I believe, getting this use permit approved, of which the use permit would use only a fraction of the property as currently proposed. In your package, the applicant provided a narrative summary of what they're hoping to achieve. Mr. Van Hoven and Deep Roots has an existing operation today. They hope to be able to enjoy a similar use. If you visit his place there, he's hoping to do pretty much the same thing here. Basically, it's a home and garden center, as Neil mentioned, a nursery, and potentially some agritourism type events as well that they've mentioned in the application. Staff did review the application and forwarded it to the normal reviewing agencies as well. Their comments were posted as part of your package review. We did review it in light of the comprehensive plan and the goals there that you all recommended the board and the board adopted in several chapters. In staff's opinion, we believe that this use, as far as a hybrid type use, as far as an agritourism, agricultural / retail type use, it could fit well within Culpeper County and potentially here at Greens Corner Road and Glenella Road. The front portion of the property, and let me show an aerial here, just kind of shows the existing parcel and the use today, largely and historically has been for an agricultural use. You can see the structures of the farm here, but the large blue area I wanted to point out is floodplain. It is FEMA floodplain. It has grown over the years. Not the actual flooding area, but the mapped floodplain area for FEMA has grown. This is what Mr. Van Hoven proposes, and I believe that this shot here, this drone image, pretty much sums up, probably better than what he could for a concept plan, but he's hoping to be able to do something very similar to what you see on the screen on this particular property. The agricultural use enterprise permit that you see, Article 31, if you have not read your zoning ordinance lately, and remember that, you don't see that very often. It's because it's not a permit that is applied for very often. We see this basically for an agricultural type use. He will be growing some of the material and finishing all of the material pretty much on the property, except for some area inside the retail. Mr. Van Hoven can go into details on that if you like him to tonight. But they will and use the property to grow and finish nursery type products, plants, trees, and flowers, that type of product that you see. Would be a small parking lot associated with it as well. The applicant would need to build a separate entrance for this facility as proposed off of Greens Corner Road as well. And all that would need to be permitted and future site planned as well if the permit were to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. Staff did recommend, as we did with the prior use permit, some potential or suggested conditions, and those are listed. A few more conditions potentially for this use, just because it is a unique use, and it is not a new, an existing use for this property, would be a new use for this property. But those are listed there as well. If you have any questions about those, we can get into the details of those. But some of the things that were listed there would be a potential setback, a 200-foot setback from the right-of-way line on Greens Corner Road, taken in a recommendation that Soil and Water had with a 35-foot riparian buffer from any stream, making sure that lighting is not intrusive to the neighborhood. No amplified music or loudspeaker intercom permitted on the property. And then, of course, the normal conditions that you see for requirement of a site plan and making sure that we meet Chapter 8 or erosion and sediment control ordinance. The applicant did provide, and he can go into detail about this if you need him to, about potential proposed Phase 3. Phase 3 would be more of an agritourism or tourism type use as far as a Christmas village, different things like that. And the applicant can go into detail on that. But basically what staff would prefer, if that's granted as part of this use permit, is that we do some type of temporary, if it's going to be temporary in nature and seasonal in nature, that maybe we either need an additional use permit or at least some future site plan with each change of season, depending on what it is. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Van Hoven is here, and he can answer questions as well.
Anyone have a question for staff before we have it happen? Ms. Thorne, go ahead.
Go ahead, you go first.
Well, I just had a quick question. Usually a lot of the greenhouses have a lot of water needs, where, with the additional facility, how are they getting the additional water addressed?
Mr. Kilby, can you repeat that?
For the water of the material, the plants, things like that?
Yeah, so that would
how are
be,
they
it
providing
would have to
them?
be provided by a private system. There's no access to public water and sewer here, so it would be a well, an irrigation system.
'Cause sometimes I've seen like actual water tanks that have been placed, so you start
There
looking at
may
screening and things
be,
like
and
that.
maybe Mr. Van Hoven can answer that question a lot better than I can. He's in the industry and has been in this game a long time, so I'm sure he can answer that question.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Sam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it started out as a concept of plant material in, plant material out. So are they going to come out on Stevensburg Road, or are they going to come out on Greens Corner? Because it seems to me like there's tractor trailers involved in it, and that Stevensburg Road is a nightmare.
There could, yes, and so the road network, you have Greens Corner Road, and of course
Yeah.
you have Stevensburg Road there as well to the south. And you're right, I mean, that potentially could be used as quick access to Route 3, and then Greens Corner, if you're coming
Right.
from 29, obviously is probably going to be your road of choice.
Well, where's the driveway gonna, I guess they would have to then make a turn and come out. You don't have a site plan really to.
No, not at this point. The applicant did submit just a concept plan, just a sketch basically, and you're looking at pretty much the corner of the property, but you're looking at, as I believe proposed, probably this part of the property.
Okay, so they're gonna come out maybe on Greens Corner and make the turn, then go to the stop sign and come. Because
But
right
of
now it
course-
says.
But of course, it wouldn't be restricted. I mean, you do have people that could access,
Right, and
certainly
the
663.
trucks are gonna do that. Now,
Right.
there was also, some kind of, I saw written that they're gonna improve Stevensburg Road. Is that a VDOT thing that was gonna happen or something?
We are working on developing plans to hopefully improve Stevensburg Road, yes.
In
Not
what-
to widen it to like a 4-lane highway, but to improve the shoulder width, lane width. But that's,
Is it funded
that's,
or is it a
that, those
concept?
plans are underway, but I could not give you a date of when that would actually happen.
And this is, you met with VDOT,
We are currently working with a consultant to develop plans with VDOT, yeah,
and how would it be funded?
working on that too.
Oh, everybody's contributing? Okay, good. Glad to hear that. No, but, all right, so we don't have,
It most likely would be a revenue sharing type application, but we do not have that allocated right
all
now.
right, okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. The applicant, or representative for the applicant, if you come forth and give your full name for the record, please.
Ryan Van Hoven, Mr. Chairman and Commission, thank you so much for taking the time to look over this. Sam did a great job, honestly, explaining kind of what we do. I don't know how many of y'all have had a chance to come out to the current location of Deep Roots. But basically, it's a garden center, is really what it comes down to. There's not, at the current location, we do have a few other things that are all farm related. We sell animal feed and animal products that would not be a part of this expansion. This would purely be plant, flower, that kind of type thing based. We don't, my background is 100% in the growing plants business, not necessarily in the animal feed side of things, and really the only animal piece of it would come into the agritourism side of things, which would be essentially seasonal petting, kind of zoo area type things, real little scale things as kids come out and enjoy the pumpkin patch, or we'll do an outdoor mum field where they can kind of come out and kind of plant, pick their own mums and those kind of things. But other than that, it would be completely plant-based. I got a few pictures just to show you kind of what our concept is. Our concept's a little different than a lot of garden centers, is we put a lot of our plant product out front for the visual effect, as opposed to tucking them away in greenhouses. And so the front, the model of it, the front would be, this is the picture of the fall, this is kind of what it looks like in spring with the building, the greenhouses behind them. The greenhouses, of course, would have plants and a lot of the more indoor plant type product in them, but a lot of the actual seasonal plants would be outside. To the front of the store would be your annuals and perennials, and to the sides you'd have a tree field where we have potted in-ground trees, so they're not grown on the ground, they're grown in pots in the ground, which is very helpful for being able to get them to customers as opposed to having to dig them up. And then on the other side, you'd have a shrub field as well, little beds that we put shrubs in. As Sam mentioned, about 50% of the product we do not grow on site. They would be brought in from suppliers. My family has several greenhouses in the area. In fact, one of the suppliers is my brother Ben. It is a Commonwealth Greenhouses. It's here in Culpeper County. Get a bunch of my material from him as well, so it's all locally grown. Otherwise, it's in Orange County is where the other greenhouses are. And it gets brought in, everything gets finished at our property. So we water, fertilize, take care of the plants after they come in, and we take care of them as long as, well, the faster the better. Obviously, we'd like to get them to customers as quickly as we can. But so that's the setup essentially of what we're trying to do. It's a little over 100-acre piece. We're about 5 acres of it would be for this agricultural enterprise, and the rest would stay as a farm. So about a quarter of the property, about 25 acres, would be set up for specifically for what we would be growing for the retail side of things. So a mum field, a pumpkin patch, some of those other things, that's where the agritourism comes in. The other 75 acres currently, we would be trying to keep them as a hay field, which is what it currently is. And then as the business grows, as things come on, all falling under the agricultural side of things, we would expand then into as well to using those. Phase one of the project would be to get a greenhouse up and get a barn structure placed in front. Similar to what you're seeing right here, this is the property from the back of what we currently have. You see the greenhouse structures there on the left. And then right in front of, or to the front right of the greenhouse structures, you'll see it's a small store that we sell out of. What we currently do on this particular property is we have local vendors that fill our store. And it's local handmade products or honey and lavender and a bunch of other things that are just all local based. If it is approved, we would actually do the same thing at this facility of finding other local vendors and getting them into the store, giving them an outlet for them to be able to sell some of their products. Complementary things really to plants essentially there. All of our facility, the facility here has a retention pond that we put in. We would have something similar there as well, set up there. As far as the water and everything goes for the actual plants would be well systems to water the plants. We currently on this particular property have 2 wells to take care of watering of the plants. Phase 3 was mentioned, and that's something that I have as a personal kind of a passion project of mine some point down the road, which is a tourism business of having a Christmas village. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but it's literally set up like a mini town type of feel. There would be a train that is a trackless train that would drive around through some lights and different things. Speaking with Sam and Neil, it really was kind of a thing for me of saying it really is almost a little bit of a separate project. It ties in with the agricultural side of the tourism part, but not really with the selling of flowers. So that's not really what I wanted to focus on this evening. I wanted to focus on the actual brunt of what we would be doing, which is the farm itself and then the garden center.
Okay. All right. Have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Kate?
So will there be any wholesale going on outside of this facility? Like, will you be selling tractor trailer loads out?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And in terms of the phase 3 with the Christmas village, like, will you be growing Christmas trees there to do like a cut your own with it, or?
Currently, I'm not looking into doing that. It is definitely something that the property could set itself up well to doing, is setting up a section there for growing Christmas trees. I haven't never grown a Christmas tree in my life, so I'd have to do a lot of looking into whether I think I'd even be able to do it well, to be honest. We buy in Christmas trees, we do seasonal Christmas trees, and we bring them in like you've seen in a lot of retail stores and sell them that way. I do bring in potted, like in containers, Christmas trees to sell, but they're not grown on the property.
And then with the greenhouses, I'm assuming you have like some type of water recirculation system that you're using. And then have you perked the land, anything like that, to know what the capacity of that well is?
We have not, though we've heard in the process of purchasing the land of there being more than enough water on this particular piece of property, which was one of the main attractive pieces to it, was the fact that there is a well currently on the land itself that would be able to sustain. And if it wasn't enough, we would then, of course, have to drill another well to take care of that. We currently at this particular facility do not recycle the water in using them for watering the plants. We have the retention pond, but we do not pump the water back into the greenhouses to water.
And then is there any foresight into, I mean, Eastern View's just right down the road, they got a small greenhouse, partnering with them on using students, potentially as co-op students, getting out early and coming and working at your facility or anything like that?
Absolutely. We do that currently at our facility that we have now, trying to pull from Orange County and we have 2 or 3 high schoolers that typically come out seasonally to work, and they mix themselves in with, depending on if they're more of the farm animal type of things, they'll work with the animal side, but then we also have them as part of our watering and plant care team, and that would be something that would be a great way for us to be plugged in with the school right there. So yes, we would definitely look into that, as all labor is very welcome.
And then with the animal petting zoo piece, so those animals won't live there all year round?
Absolutely correct. We would partner with a local farm to come out. They would bring the animals there. We'd have that piece, and then they would take them back. And that's currently what we do at the facility that we have now. Right now it's quarterly. We do a festival where we bring in local vendors. They set up sort of like a mini farmer's market. And that's when we'd have the petting zoo. So I brought that up because if we had the Christmas town and we went down that path, we would likely have something similar to that as well, for sure, on the weekends or whatever that looks like.
And everything would be gravel, not paved?
Correct, yes, yes.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Price?
Sir, the Christmas Village, would that be a permanent setup or just seasonal, and then you would farm that land the rest of the year?
Correct, that would be 100% seasonal. So it would be up second week in November and down first of the year. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Thornhill? Oh, I thought you, did you say? I thought you had.
I did not raise my hand, but, no, it sounds like a kind of a interesting agricultural adventure, and it sounds like you have it under control because you've done it before. You're not just getting into this for the first time. So I don't really have any questions other than to watch the access and the tractor-trailer traffic or Stevensburg Road. It is not a good travel road for anything big because there's no ditch. I mean, it is a ditch. There's no side road, no side piece. So I'm sure you'll figure that out.
For sure.
But I don't have anything else. Thank you.
We use, just so you know, for supplying the plants that we bring in, I use a much smaller box truck.
Box truck.
So it's not a full tractor trailer. We do bring in probably a tractor trailer every other week of mulch and soils and different kinds of things, all from JK Enterprise, and we
That'd be
can,
Greens
sure,
Corner Road then,
yes,
yeah,
we
that'd
could
be
we
easier.
could communicate well that they need to stay on Greens Corner, and they probably know that already anyway.
Right.
I'm guessing. So.
Thank you.
Okay,
I got another one.
go right ahead.
So mulch and soil, you bring that up, is that bulk where you're loading it out, with a tractor bucket, or is it all bag product?
It's all bag product. The only thing that we do bulk currently at the current facility, and the only thing that I would want to do bulk there is mulch itself. And
Okay.
so that would be the only one that we do bulk.
So I'm assuming treated posts, basically pit and filling that?
Correct. It's essentially a pit with the concrete bottom so that you're not messing with the soil and all the other things that go on there. Yeah.
Okay,
I just had one question.
go ahead.
Sorry. Just thinking about it, on the new facility, will there be any solar panels for use?
It's not planned.
It's not planned? I was just curious. Okay. So it'll have like an air filtration system?
Okay. Yes.
How tall is your facilities now? Like, what's the average height?
The greenhouses themselves are probably about 25 feet to the top. You typically have about 18-foot clearance up to the top, and then you have the peaked roofs on the greenhouse facility itself. The structures are all, depending on what structure you pick, a little bit different.
And really no neighbors to really be concerned with, right, at all?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. I mean, I can see from the map and driven by there, I can't remember if there's a house nearby or not. It's pretty open, so.
I had a question about staff's recommended condition of your retail sales taking place 200 feet from the road. Can you describe how you came to that, and is that a hindrance?
Not a
being
hindrance.
right up on the corner.
Correct. It's not a hindrance at all. The reason why we picked the corner was because it's the most visible part of the property naturally. But backing up as far as is required and then some is not an issue at all for us. So we'll just, as we come up with a site plan and working with them, we can set that up to make sure it's meeting all that they're asking.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug?
This really isn't a concern, just a question. I didn't know if you did any rainwater collection.
That is what the retention ponds in the back typically are. But we haven't recycled it yet. There's definitely systems that do that, and my brother's greenhouses all recycle the water and pump it back into the
Well, I
greenhouses.
mean, I didn't know if you're collecting the rainwater off the roofs, what's coming
All
down the downspout.
100% a gutter system that runs it all down
Okay.
into where the ponds are running away from the facility.
Okay, any other questions?
So one more. And part of the staff considerations, applicant should provide further information regarding proposed Phase 3 Christmas Village, such as layout, lighting, and any temporary expansion of parking and erection of temporary structures, et cetera. Alternatively, the applicant can apply for a separate conditional use permit at a later date. So with this Christmas Village, are you expecting expanded parking?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the ones that I've been to, there's quite a bit of traffic. So that would be where the working with VDOT with the increased traffic seasonally would be a big thing, which I think is why the suggestion of a separate conditional use permit for that. All the lighting things, we're farmers, so we wake up when the sun comes up and we go to bed when the sun goes down, right? So the lighting issue is not a problem for us, not open 9 to 6, and then when the gates are closed, we're closed, the lights go off. For a Christmas village, obviously a part of the draw is the nights and the lights and the festivity part of it. So that's where I think looking at it a little differently for that particular part of the phase is probably smart on what we should probably end up doing.
Well, for the parking though solely, I mean, are you just gonna flag off a piece of the field? Is it gonna be gravelled, or do you think what you have for existing parking will be sufficient?
We would definitely use a field. What we currently do whenever we have a festival and there's increased traffic is we park into the field, and then we would, parking's over, we'd reclaim that and use it as necessary.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now open the public hearing. Anyone who'd like to speak on this application, just raise your hand and be recognized by the chair and come forth and give your full name. Yes, sir. You already know the ropes. All right.
Again, Corey Clinton, Stevensburg District, and actually live off of Glenella there. And again, this is another application that just kind of warms my heart, seeing an agricultural theme going on here that fits the theme of our comprehensive plan and the vision of what Culpeper County is and what an asset this would be to fit into that model. This community right here we're looking at is surrounded by, we got hay fields, we have cattle farms, I have a small dairy farm, we have of course, our father's house over there on the other side, but it's a farming and agricultural community, and this is an asset that fits really well. When you look at solar fields and data centers, obviously that is not a fit. This is a common sense fit, and as a resident here, and in addition to that segment on Glenella there is slated to be paved here soon. Just as a resident in the community, I 100% support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else? Declare the public hearing closed. Any discussion? If not, the chair entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that case U-2245-23-1 be approved with the conditions 1 through 6 laid out in staff's report.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a second?
No,
Okay.
how about there's 7 conditions?
Yeah.
You said 6.
Yeah, but I don't really see 7, I guess, as a condition because
Okay.
it says about that can't apply for at a separate date.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Probably moving second. Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. We will forward it to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. Okay, all right. No other business at this time. The chair entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed likewise? They went home already.